Around a year and a half ago now, I made this video in which I very subtly hinted that what I really wanted for Christmas was a cross-stitch stand. I added the gold standard Lowery brand to my Christmas wishlist and honestly didn't really expect to get one. Which is good because I didn't get one. That year at least. But then Christmas 2023 arrived and brought with it the answer to all of life's problems. And since then it's popped up in a couple of my videos and prompted lots of questions, so here is my attempt to answer them. Is a Lowery workstand worth the price, and is it going to change your stitching life? Let's see, shall we? First things first then. Why a Lowery specifically? This is one of those things where if you've been around the cross-stitch and embroidery worlds for a while, you've probably heard a lot about this brand, and I think a lot of people just assume they're the best based on how expensive they are. Being naturally frugal, I did try and find an alternative that would be a bit more affordable, but the thing is, I just couldn't really find anything that seemed like it would stack up. First of all, this is a slim metal pole. It's not going to stand out or take up lots of space. It's just understated, you know? You can get them in more interesting colours, but I specifically wanted something that wasn't going to look out of place in our living room and annoy Dave just a little bit more each day until one day he snapped and murdered me. Secondly, there is no denying these things get amazing reviews from a lot of people. As well as the default setup, you can get all manner of wild and wonderful accessories to customise it to your exact stitching setup. So most people do end up loving it, although quietly I was wondering how much of that was just convincing themselves because of how much they'd spent. The majority of cheaper options, as well as some of the more expensive ones to be totally fair, are made out of wood. And I didn't really fancy that because I thought it would just be a bit more bulky and noticeable in the room. The space where it needed to fit is quite small, and plus I just wasn't sure if something like that is really going to last as long as the metal version. I can't imagine it would, but I could be totally wrong there. Anyway, the wooden ones I looked at all came in a lot heavier as well, which I'm sure is great in terms of stability, but it's not so great for someone like me who needs to be constantly picking it up and moving it around the house for filming and things. So yes, long story short, I decided this might be the rare occasion where the big brand version is actually worth the money over alternatives. And I have to say, I've not been disappointed in that choice so far. So let's get into some specifics. Parts and assembly. Now, okay, a real vlogger would definitely have waited until she had the camera handy to break into a new toy like this. But it was Christmas morning! No way! I got stuck straight in, and as I think you can see, I was very excited. The workstand comes in just a few bits. The base, the main pole, the clamp, and the bits you need to attach it all together. Mine came with a leaflet on all the other attachments you can buy for the same place, and yeah, I did spend some of Christmas morning staring at this wistfully as well. But for now, we're just reviewing the basics, so that was pretty much that for assembly. Really easy. First impressions. The intended usage here is that the base slides under the side of your chair, or in my case the couch, and the L-bar here holds your piece in front of you from the side. But as you can see, minor issue, it doesn't really reach very far this way. I knew this was going to be a problem, and I'd also put the extender bar on my wish list, where it sadly remains to this day. For now, I have made it work. Firstly, when I assembled it all excited on the day, I didn't really think about this handle here, but of course, if you have it facing the same way as your base, it's going to hit the side of whatever you're sitting on and lose you a precious inch or two. So I had to redo that and make sure it was round the back. Secondly, most of my projects live in a small 8x8 inch Q-snap frame. But I found that by putting together a longer rectangular Q-snap, I was able to get the actual stitching area another precious couple of inches over. Don't get me wrong, it's still not ideal, but they do custom-sized extension bars, so I will be on that as soon as I can afford it. This is fine for now. Okay, I call this section first impressions, but I've definitely gone off on a tangent. Let's rein it back in. Don't at me, I know how privileged this sounds, but because I'd measured it in advance and I knew that the length of that L-bar was going to be a problem, my first impression was probably mild disappointment that I hadn't also got my hands on an extender bar. But happily, with my couple of tweaks and rearranging this side cushion, it's honestly been great. You might think I'm sitting really awkwardly curled up in this clip just to reach the stitching, but I'll be honest, this is just kind of how I sit. So, has it made a difference to my stitching? The short answer is yes, absolutely. You might have seen the recent 24 hours of cross-stitch vlog that I made, and this stand featured heavily. I'm not going to say it's the only reason I made it through the 24 hours with relative ease, but it definitely helped. First of all, I was just able to relax more because I wasn't holding one hand steady in the same place for the whole 24 hours. I was also able to switch things up. This is supposed to be a side clamp, but I found that I could easily set it up front facing too and get some slightly better stitching posture going on to keep my body from crumbling to dust. The stand is nice and sturdy and secure while stitching, but you can still really easily flip over to the back to fix a tangle or weave in an end, or you can just turn this handle and swing the whole thing out of the way so you're not climbing in and out of a precariously complex setup. And best of all, the thing I was most looking forward to, you can stitch with both hands! I mean, obviously this is the point of all such work stands, it's not unique to this one, but I can confirm that it is awesome and so much faster. It takes a little bit of practice, and I found that having my non-dominant hand be at the front was a lot easier than the other way around because it really needs closer supervision. So, overall faster stitching that is more relaxing and takes about a second to put down or pick up again? Yeah, I think we can safely say it's made quite the difference. Issues and workarounds. We already talked about the length of this L-bar not being ideal. Clearly it's designed for people who have a dedicated stitching chair and don't just need to fit into the corner of a normal living room like I do most of the time. There are extender bars available, but it has to be said they don't come cheap. To be thorough, I looked into whether it would be cheaper just to buy a separate metal bar and some kind of clamp to hold them together, but as far as I can tell in the UK, the answer seems to be no. It was coming out to pretty much the same price as just buying a real extender bar, and it was going to look a lot less slick. This is quite likely to be different over in the US. I know a lot of things like this are a lot cheaper over there, but I just can't comment on that. For all, the stand is very sturdy when you're working on it. Even a tiny lightweight project like this tends to sort of slump over pathetically when it's swung round to the side. Now, part of this is on me, because I have this clamp attached basically as close to the end of the L-bar as possible to again just eke out a little bit of extra length. And if I shove that further on, although it is now unusable for me to actually stitch on it, it is a lot more sturdy, to be fair. And part of it is just on my setup. Our couch has quite a large gap underneath, so the base isn't by any means held snugly in place. And I can't put it under the leg like they suggest, because I need to be able to move it around, and also frankly, I'm way too weak to lift the couch. I'll probably just whip up a beanbag or something to weigh it down at some point. Before getting the stand, I'd read a few questions from new owners that specifically said they were having trouble getting Q-snaps to hold in the clamp securely. And this is a bit of a worry to me because Q-snaps are life. If you're unfamiliar, they're plastic frames with round bars and clips, so they are pretty slippy and there's not a whole lot to them. I experimented with attaching the clamp straight to the Q-snap, and yeah, it does work, but it's precarious, and even with this, again, very small, lightweight project, it slid out a couple of times and fell on the floor. This is where a trusty grime guard comes in. This is one I made for my 8x8 inch Q-snap, which I have a tutorial for just here, and honestly I never got round to making ones for other sizes because I mostly just use 8x8 at the moment, and also I'm very lazy. But basically, a bit of fabric like this, whether it's a grime guard or just a spare cloth or a bit of felt, really helps the clamp get a solid grip. It makes an absolutely massive difference. When I switched to the longer sided frame to get my bit of extra sideways push, this grime guard obviously wouldn't fit anymore, but I just awkwardly wrapped it around the one bar that the clamp needed to hold onto, and that worked absolutely fine. Is it worth the price? This is such a subjective question, and honestly, if this hadn't been a gift, I would never have been able to justify the cost of it in a million years, so I totally understand if you're looking at that price and thinking just, wow, nowhere. But what I will say is I read a lot of reviews of cheaper options, and in this case it does kind of seem like you get what you pay for. I definitely don't spend as much time cross-stitching as a lot of people watching this video, but I'm still relatively young and hopefully have a lot of years of stitching still ahead of me. So yeah, it's a lot to spend, but if I get to use it for the next 30 years... Of course it might be the other way around for you. You might be looking at these prices thinking, wow, she is super poor, that is nothing at all. In which case, congratulations, and yeah, you should probably think about picking up one of these because they're pretty great. Also, I have a Ko-fi you could join for just £2 a month so I could get an extender bar. Upshot is, a Lowery workstand is not an essential tool. You're not less of a stitcher for not having one, and as much as I wish it were true, you don't automatically become cooler when you get one. But it is very nice to have, and it's definitely worth considering for anyone who just wants to take their hobby to that next level. That's really all I can say. Thank you as ever to my Ko-fi supporters for enabling the creation of this video, and especially to my Stitch squad. Mary Ann Johnson, Sunny, Candy Riley Pettinger, Laura Salets, Rosalie, Enlightened Flamingo, Cross Stitch the Globe, Shay Condon, and I'd Rather Be Stitching. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in this video, feel free to pop them down in the comments and I'll answer them as best I can. And if you want to recommend a cheaper alternative that stacks up, please do. I would love to see, and I'm sure it'll help somebody else out too. Fellow Lowery owners, tell me, what's your favourite accessory? Which elaborate add-on couldn't you live without? I've got to get my Christmas wishlist for this year on the go, after all. Okay, I'll be back soon with some more crafty nonsense, so in the meantime, have a brilliant rest of your day and keep making cool stuff. Bye!